Okay, it is April 27th, 2013, and we are in Wilmington, Delaware, and we're interviewing Mr. Anthony Vuolo, good Italian name, about his life and his experiences during World War II, and we'd like to invite him to sign our World War II memorial book, if he would. And if you could put your name and your unit or units and today's date, that would be great.
Anthony Vuolo, today's date?
Yep, April
April
27th.
27th, 2013.
Right.
And you want my unit?
Yes, please.
445th
Okay.
Bomb Group.
If you want to go down to squadron, that's great.
'702nd.
Okay. And you can put 8th Air Force, and that would be
Squadron.
great. Yeah, that would be great.
Eighth Air Force.
Right. Great. Okay, thank you. You don't close that because that ink doesn't dry very quickly. Oh, that's great. Your handwriting's very good too. Some of the things we see are virtually illegible. Great, thank you. Okay, if you can just can I borrow a chair here to sit in?
Absolutely.
And if you can just start at the beginning, where you were born and when and what your dad and mom did and so on.
I was born in Newark, New Jersey. My dad was an immigrant from Italy, Naples, Italy, and came over to this country by himself on a ship at the age of 17 years old.
Wow.
And melted into the workforce, coming in through New York, Ellis Island, and locating in North Jersey, where he found employment.
Now, what was his name?
Mariano Vuolo. And he married my mother, who was born here in the United States, but she was also 16 years old, I think, or 17 when they got married.
Was she of Italian origin as well?
Yeah, her dad was a railroader,
Okay.
worked for the railroad. And in those days they were building, you know, the early railroad systems. And then they proceeded to have a family of 8. And I was the 6th of 8.
Oh.
I have 5 brothers and 2 sisters, all deceased except myself and 2 brothers.
Are they younger brothers?
One's older,
Wow.
former Navy pilot,
Wow.
and he was the reason why I volunteered.
Now, is he's still, where does he live?
He lives in Las Vegas, near Las Vegas,
Okay.
in Nevada.
Okay.
And he's a former commercial pilot.
Now, did he flew in the war then?
He was a Navy pilot,
Okay.
and he was responsible for me going into the Air Force.
And what was his name? What is his name?
Arthur.
Okay.
And he's 93 now,
Wow.
going on 94.
Wow.
Still alive.
Yeah. So when were you born?
I was born in 1922.
Okay.
So obviously I'm a Depression area child.
Right.
You know,
And when's your birthday? The month and the day?
May 2nd,
Oh, that's-
1922.
Oh, coming up.
Yeah, in a couple
Coming up.
days.
Yeah.
I'll be 91.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
happy birthday in advance.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. But yes, we grew up in the city,
Mm-hmm.
and I experienced all the city atmosphere of multinationalities,
Mm-hmm.
and that was good for a good learning experience
Right.
because it gives you tolerance
Right. Yeah.
that you don't get if you grow up missing that
Right.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
No, the younger four boys in my family all were military. The older four were too old for the draft.
Huh.
But I had older brother, Navy pilot, myself, Army navigator. My next youngest brother was a torpedo man for the Navy.
Wow.
On a destroyer.
Uh-huh.
And my youngest brother, who is still alive, was regular Army.
Where did he serve? Was he in Europe?
No, he was kind of young and never left the country.
Oh, okay.
He was just training and
Okay.
stayed in the country. But the three of us were in combat. Outside of the fact that I grew up through the Depression, which was, kind of a difficult time to grow up,
Yeah.
but it gave you a lot of lessons in life about the fact that you had to work.
Yeah. So how did it impact your family particularly? I mean, some people we've interviewed it hit really hard. Other people said, well, we lived on a farm, so we pretty much had everything we needed. How did it affect you guys?
My dad was very good about working hard and providing for a large family. And he had his job through the, he was a fireman engineer in a big department store.
Mm-hmm.
They made their own electric power, and
Okay.
he operated the boilers, and he also worked with the electrical generation equipment
Okay.
for the department store. And most of his knowledge he got on his own because he didn't have any education,
Yeah.
formal.
I was
No
going to say
formal education.
probably on the job training almost, huh?
Yeah. And my mother was the same way, very little formal education, but she could read and write and
Yeah.
Italian and English and so forth. So they were self-motivated
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
good people. Yeah.
So what did you like in school the best? I mean, what was?
Well, I had a very normal education, grade school, high school. But in those days, we were allowed to advance on your own
Mm-hmm.
through summer school, they called it at that time. So I graduated high school at the age of 16.
Wow.
And then I went to preparatory school because we couldn't afford college. And that's where I took up mechanical things.
Okay.
I took up a lot of machine shop work, and I took courses in aircraft mechanics
Wow.
courses.
Okay.
And I was thinking in terms of going in the military at that point.
Okay.
Because things were changing in this country. President Roosevelt had, in 1939, he started that Lend-Lease program,
Mm-hmm.
where they were providing Great Britain, who was fighting the battle alone against Germany
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And so we were thinking in terms that we were going to be taken into the military, so
Right.
I was preparing myself for
Okay.
that.
Okay. Did you, at that time, you were obviously following the news because you knew what was going on in Europe and so on. Were you aware of what was going on in the Far East as well?
To a lower extent, yes, to
Right.
a lower point.
And did you sense, where you were living in Newark, New Jersey, Do you remember a sense, because there was a huge isolationist movement, of course, in this country in the late 30s and 1940, early 41 as well. We don't want to get involved in the European mess, it's not our problem. Do you remember how
Yes.
prevalent that sentiment was where you were?
Yes, it was quite prevalent.
Okay.
However, I played a lot of sports with the boys my age,
Uh-huh.
and when I guess through President Roosevelt's determined that the bulk of the younger men could volunteer for 1 year of training,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would be allowed to go home again.
Mm-hmm.
They were not committed to more than 1 year, and that didn't take place. At the end of the year, before they let them go home, they kept those people in the military.
Yeah, that was that National Guard thing.
And
yeah.
there were 6 of my friends that I played ball with who were in the 6 volunteers and that first 1 year volunteer group.
Right, right.
And they were kept in the military.
Yeah.
One or two of them were killed in D-Day,
Oh.
at D-Day, yeah.
Oh.
But that's because they were the first ones overseas.
Right, yeah.
And it was a trying time.
Now, do you remember, so the community you guys were living in Newark, New Jersey, was it like a little Italy? Was it did you have, or were all your neighbors of different ethnic backgrounds, or?
Well, that's true. There were little clusters
Mm-hmm.
of nationalities.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't live in the one which was an Italian background,
Mm-hmm.
but nearby there was a Polish
Mhm.
segment,
Mm-hmm.
there was a colored segment
Mm-hmm.
up there on
Mhm.
one side. There was let's see, there was an Irish section,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was where everybody was in a
Right.
group. I
Right.
had Jewish friends,
Uh-huh.
I had colored friends, I had Irish friends.
Uh-huh. Now, do you remember, because we've talked to a lot of Italian Americans who were in the war, and we've had some that have told us that their parents, many of whom had come from Italy, and they weren't, they were first generation, they were just off the boat. I guess you'd be first generation, they were just off the boat. That they really had, in some cases, mixed feelings about Mussolini. Do you remember any discussion in your family about him, or what the take was on him?
Well, whatever take there was on Mussolini was negative.
Okay.
They didn't believe in fascism. As I was saying, my father emigrated from
Right.
Italy,
Right.
but he never served anywhere underneath Mussolini's control.
Right. Right.
So he didn't have first-hand information
Okay.
about Mussolini
Okay.
at all.
Okay.
But he certainly knew that fascism wasn't accepted in his little neighborhood in
Okay.
Italy.
Okay. That's interesting.
So,
So then, what kind of in that preparatory school? So if you graduated from high school at 16, that would put it around 1938, right? And then
graduated in 1939, January of 39.
Okay. And so then, for the next 2 years, you were in this preparatory school,
Yeah.
and you were doing.
I took everything from blueprint reading to mechanical, aircraft mechanics, navigation.
Wow.
I took all courses that I thought would help me in the military.
Sure. So you were a natural when when
Oh, I
things
knew
started.
I was going.
Yeah.
I volunteered in 1942.
So do you remember where you were on Pearl Harbor Day? Do you remember? Can you tell us about that?
Pearl Harbor Day. Where was I? That was was January 7th, 1941.
Yeah, December 7th, 41, yeah.
I was working in going to prep school,
Mm-hmm.
and no, I can't tell you exactly, but I remember the time when everyone at those days had little radios, receivers.
Uh-huh.
It were difficult to get the reception,
Right.
and so we listened for President Roosevelt's speak about the dastardly attack.
Mm-hmm. So you heard that on...
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but it was on a little bit of a radio,
Yeah.
and of course it was in all the newspapers.
Yeah. Yeah.
The newspapers were completely full with it, and obviously there was a lot of sentiment about why would the Japs do this to
Mhm.
us, and so on and so
Right,
forth.
Right.
And then we found out more as time went by that the Japs were aligned with the Germans
Mhm.
and the Italians to
Mhm.
form the war against the Great Britain and the United States and Russia.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of sentiment back in those days, and of course, you know, and everybody today realizes that President Roosevelt was responsible for the concentration camps that they put the Japs in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a black mark against the United States
Mhm.
and America, of course, but at the time it seemed like the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
We've been questioned about it a lot in history because of the nature of how it was done.
Mm-hmm.
But
Did you ever feel after we got in the war? Did you ever feel any prejudice against you because of your Italian background?
no,
No. Okay.
never,
Okay.
never. No. When I went in the military, I volunteered. I was 1942, I just turning 20.
Mm-hmm.
I'd volunteered for the Air Force because my brother was in the Navy Air Force,
Mhm.
Navy flying, and I thought that was a good way to go because if we got shot down or killed, it would be kind of instantaneously without suffering a lot.
Yeah.
And it just looked like a better life.
Okay.
The facilities were usually better. The training was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I received excellent training. When I went in the military, my first training was a classification center
Mm-hmm.
where
Where was that? Do you remember where that was?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
In the classification center, they decided what your capabilities could be, and they also wanted to weed out any personalities that might not fit with the military.
Okay.
And then they classified you as what you might be able to do in the military, or at least in the Air Force,
Mhm.
because at that time it was called the Air Corps.
Right. So if you volunteered, you got your choice of branches of service then?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I was admitted into the Air Corps Cadet Program,
Okay.
which is for pilots, navigators, and bombardiers. Were trained through that program, the Air Force Cadets, they called them. You got a little extra salary instead of the $40 a month or whatever it was $75.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a
Yes.
benefit that
Yeah.
way. And I qualified for a pilot at first, and I took pilot training
And where was that? Where was the pilot training?
in Maxwell Field, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And they decided I wasn't going to be a good pilot. for different reasons.
Right.
One of which was a small accident with the plane.
You want to tell us about the small accident?
Well, I had trouble landing the plane.
Now, what kind was it? What were you?
I was flying a primary trainer,
Okay.
PT-17.
Okay.
It's a biplane.
Oh, it's what I think the Stearmans?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the Navy called him, the Yellow Peril. That was a Navy
Right.
name for him.
And I landed it off the runway one time and hit a metal stake, and it tore a little bit of the fuselage. And that was the last of my pilot training.
Okay.
So, and they said, probably be a better navigator or bombardier. Which do you want? And I said, well, let me try navigation.
Okay.
And I did, and I was successful at that.
So then where did you train as a navigator?
Selman Field, Louisiana.
Okay. How long did that last?
That was quite a lengthy training. I didn't finish until March of 1944.
Wow.
And then got my commission at that time, second lieutenant, as a navigator. And I went to aerial gunnery school to learn how to shoot at a moving target, like in an aircraft would be.
And where was that?
Tyndall Field, Florida. And from there, I went up to Massachusetts, Westover Field, Massachusetts, to meet my crew.
Okay, if you can hold that up and you
To
just
meet,
okay.
what do you,
Okay, if you hold it up straight and hold it, you can hold it right in front of you and just hold it steady, and I'll zoom in on these guys, and you can tell us a little bit about. So that's where so that picture though was taken, you told me earlier, in Great Britain though.
yeah, this is